Imagine waking up one morning in June. You pull back the curtains expecting sunlight, warmth, the promise of summer. Instead, snow is falling. Not a light dusting. Heavy flakes. Enough to cover the ground, the crops, the roads. The air feels wrong, cold, sharp. The sky is pale, almost sickly, as if the sun itself is dying. In the fields, the crops your family depends on are frozen solid, turning black in the soil. Birds fall silent, then begin dropping from the sky. Livestock shiver, starve, and die. People whisper in fear. Some pray. Others panic. They believe God is angry, that the world is ending. This isn't a movie. This isn't a myth. This actually happened. In the year 1816, the Earth experienced something so extreme, so unnatural, that people named it the year without a summer. A year when the sun disappeared. A year when hunger ruled nations. A year that secretly reshaped the modern world. And the most terrifying part? The disaster didn't begin in Europe. It didn't begin in America. It began quietly, on a remote island thousands of miles away. To understand how the world nearly collapsed, we have to go back to April 1815. On an island in present-day Indonesia stood a mountain most people had never heard of, Mount Tambora. Tambora was massive, over 14,000 feet tall, a sleeping giant, silent, ignored, until it woke up. On April 10th, 1815, the mountain didn't simply erupt, it detonated. The explosion was so powerful it was heard more than 1,600 miles away. Entire villages were erased in seconds. Ash rained from the sky like burning snow. The ocean boiled. The ground shook for days. This was the largest volcanic eruption in recorded human history. More powerful than Krakatoa, more powerful than Mount St. Helens, more powerful than anything humanity had ever witnessed. But the real danger wasn't the lava. It wasn't the fire. It was what Tambora sent into the sky. The volcano blasted enormous amounts of sulfur dioxide into the upper atmosphere, far higher than rain clouds, far higher than storms, so high that the particles spread across the entire planet. There they formed an invisible veil, a veil that reflected sunlight back into space. The Earth began to cool, slowly at first, then suddenly, then catastrophically. By the time spring arrived in 1816, the world no longer behaved like it used to. In Europe and North America, the seasons broke. Frost struck when flowers should have bloomed. Snow fell in May. Ice formed in June. In New England, farmers reported frost every single month of the year. In July and August, lakes in Pennsylvania were still frozen. People tried to plant crops again and again, only to watch them die. The temperature of the planet dropped by nearly 3 degrees. 3 degrees doesn't sound like much, but it was enough to destroy global food systems. Grain failed across Europe. Wheat, oats, barley, gone. In Ireland, crops collapsed, pushing families towards starvation years before the Great Famine. In Switzerland, desperation grew so severe that people ate grass, tree bark, moss, even pets. Food prices skyrocketed. Bread became a luxury. Hunger turned into rage. Across Europe, riots erupted. Crowds marched through streets carrying banners that read, "Bread or blood." Governments feared revolution. Armies were deployed not to fight enemies, but to control starving citizens. Disease followed hunger. Typhus spread. Bodies weakened by starvation couldn't fight it. Millions suffered. Hundreds of thousands died. And yet, something strange was happening in the darkness. Because while the world outside was collapsing, human imagination was transforming. In the summer of 1816, a group of young writers gathered near Lake Geneva in Switzerland. They expected warmth, sunlight, relaxation. Instead, they were trapped indoors, day after day of rain, endless clouds, a sky that never cleared. One of them was a young woman named Mary Shelley. Another was the famous poet Lord Byron. Bored and unsettled by the eerie weather, Byron suggested a challenge. Each person should write a ghost story. What followed would change culture forever. Surrounded by darkness, isolation, and fear, Mary Shelley imagined a world where humans played God, where creation turned into abandonment. That story became Frankenstein. Not just a monster story, but a reflection of a broken world. At the same time, Lord Byron wrote a poem called Darkness, describing a sunless earth descending into chaos. His physician, John Polidori, wrote The Vampire, the foundation of modern vampire mythology that would later inspire Dracula. The horror genre was born because the sun vanished, but the ripple effects went even further. With crops destroyed, there was no grain to feed horses, and horses were everything: transportation, farming, trade. As horses died or were slaughtered for food, mobility collapsed. A German inventor named Karl von Drais faced a simple problem. How do you move without a horse? His solution was radical: a wooden, two-wheeled frame, no engine, no animal, just human power. He called it the Laufmaschine. Today we call it the bicycle. A climate disaster sparked one of humanity's most important inventions. Meanwhile, across the Atlantic, America was changing forever. Before 1816, most Americans lived along the East Coast, but the killing frosts destroyed New England farms. Families believed the land was cursed, that the climate had turned against them, so they packed their belongings, loaded their wagons, and moved west, into Ohio, into Indiana, into the Midwest. This mass migration reshaped the United States, economically, politically, culturally. Westward expansion accelerated by decades, all because of one volcano. One mountain on a distant island rewrote human history. The year without a summer wasn't caused by war. It wasn't caused by politics. It wasn't caused by human greed. It was caused by nature reminding us who is truly in control. A single eruption changed the climate, changed art, changed technology, changed where millions of people lived, and most people have never heard of it. 1816 proves something unsettling. Civilization is fragile. The systems we depend on, food, transport, stability, can collapse faster than we imagine. But it also proves something else. From darkness, humans adapt. From crisis, we create. From chaos, the future is reshaped. The sun disappeared, and the modern world was born.